Well, hi there, folks. Welcome to the program. This, of course, is Stinchfield, the podcast. I'll tell you what, President Trump is moving in the right direction in a very big way. All the signs I'm seeing are leading now to a President Trump victory, providing we can get election integrity under control. I'm still not convinced that cheating isn't going to steal it for the Democrats. But all that aside, I'm liking what I'm seeing. You have Wall Street CEOs now coming out in a very big way for President Trump, quietly behind the scenes. Many of these Wall Street CEOs that have been for Kamala Harris and Joe Biden are now quietly calling President Trump to give him their support. You've got all of the newspapers now, these big ones, started with the LA Times, then the Washington Post, now the USA Today, all not endorsing anyone. They're talking about fairness in the media. Fairness in the media, they haven't ever been fair. And I want to prove to you why I don't think they're going to continue to be fair either. But it is big. They are not endorsing. I think they are starting to cover their tracks. Yet we've got a gentleman, an anchorman from Biloxi, Mississippi, who simply speaks the truth. And instead of getting scolded, he gets fired because of his support for President Trump. So the war is still on. The censorship is still very, very real. Anybody that voices their support for President Trump that is in the media will be and is in the crosshairs, including this podcast, by the way, as we continue to battle censorship on the big social media platforms. All of this we're going to talk about today, as it couldn't get more important as we head in to Election Day next week. All right, so folks, with that, I want you to think about my friends over at causanow.com. So causanow.com is a buyer's club that is about being patriotic, but it's also about American-made products. It's also about quality products, and it's also about non-toxic products. So if you want to be part of the solution for America, you got to get with this family-owned company where all the products for your household, nearly everything you need from your household, from cleaning products to personal hygiene products to anything you need in your house, they're going to have it. The Cadillac, it's like going to Amazon, only it's American, and they'll ship it right to your house at great prices. It's a buyer's club, again, that takes market share away from Amazon, puts the big box stores on notice. And you know what? Even more importantly, puts China on notice. We're not going to take it anymore. So if you want to help be part of the solution, you want to start buying American, go to causanow.com/grant, causanow.com/grant. Become a member today. They'll get in touch with you, and they'll get back with you. And I'm telling you, do what I did. Join this group and not only feel good about yourself, but put quality products in your home at a very reasonable price. All right, with that, folks, let's get the show started. Can you believe that we are now really less than a week away from Election Day? This is unbelievable to me how time has now flown by as we watched our country be destroyed right before our very eyes. It's time now to put the pedal to the metal. It's now up to all of us. But here's something I want to tell you, as I know you are probably just like me and filled with anxiety. Many people lie awake at night wondering what's going to happen come Tuesday. Many people can't stop thinking about it. You sit at work, you drive in the car, you listen to this radio program, you turn on the news, and all you think about is what's going to happen if, God forbid, President Trump doesn't win. And it brings you anxiety. Trust me, I know. I've had at times pits in my stomach. There's been times I do this radio program and the TV show and my blood pressure is up. It's ruining my health in many respects, even though I'm in decent shape. But this is taking its toll, and it's not just me. This is taking its toll on the American people. But here's the good news. The good news is I'm seeing a lot of signs that things are moving in President Trump's favor. All right, so now Nicki Minaj, is that her name? Dan the phone man? Nicki Minaj. I really don't know who this is. She's a singer. She's pretty popular. She came out and endorsed President Trump. From what I'm told, it's huge that Nicki Minaj endorse President Trump. Good. We'll take any endorsements we can get. But that's a Hollywood entertainer. There's more of those Hollywood entertainers out there that have really come forward and said, you know what? We're going to start speaking up because we can't afford it. And then you look at the big newspapers. The LA Times right here refuses to endorse. Whatever the reason, whether she's not pro-Muslim enough or she's not pro-Trump enough, whatever, there's lots of rumors swirling inside the LA Times about why they're not endorsing a candidate for the presidency. Who cares? They didn't endorse for the first time in decades. Then you get the Washington Post. Doesn't endorse. 50 years, they have only endorsed a Democrat candidate. They don't endorse. And now the USA Today as well. The USA Today, no endorsement for the presidency. Do you folks understand how big this is? The writing is on the wall that President Trump is in the driver's seat of this campaign. Now, I understand the cheating is going to be real. It's going to be widespread. When I see those 2,500 fake, phony registrations in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, one county discovered, I say to myself, that's one county. What's happening in the other counties in Pennsylvania? Pennsylvania is an important state. If there's 2,500 in that county of Lancaster, what about Bucks County? What about the other counties in Pennsylvania? I get it. Maybe, just maybe, we've got 100,000 lawyers on the ground. I wish the 100,000 lawyers for the Republicans were on the ground 3 years ago, starting to push legislation, lobbying lawmakers to make sure this was taken care of in a better fashion than it already is. But maybe, just maybe, we're gonna beat this hurdle of the cheat. And the signs to me are, you've got newspapers now that are not endorsing. You've got a big-time economic forecaster. Somebody Bloomberg called the number one forecaster for the economy for 12 straight years. He has picked President Trump to win. I'm going to talk about that in a little bit later in the show. But he's picking President Trump to win. You've got the betting markets, which I think are better than the polls. The betting markets have President Trump up 60, well, not up 60 points, but 60-40 President Trump. When the gambling markets, people put their money to it, that is a great sign. 855-785-8255 is the number to weigh in. Are you on board with me? Do you believe me? Do you feel the same way that I do? Let me know. 855-785-8255. Here's what else I know. You have, I'm going to say everyday folks becoming more and more bold about their support for President Trump. This movement that I'm going to say we created. Yes, President Trump's the leader of the movement, but folks, it's our movement. President Trump is our voice. He says things that we wish we could say at times. President Trump is battling back the most evil, vile people imaginable. You got deep staters that want to take him out. You got a Justice Department going after him. He stands firm in defense of all of us. They've got to go through him to get to us. Believe me, they're trying. But it's still our movement. What makes the Make America Great Again movement great is because it's us. And when I say everyday Joe, not always are anchor people everyday Joes, but when you go into local news, especially small market local news, the anchor men and women represent the community. They almost look like the community. This happens in L.A., too. It happens in New York. New York, you get a lot of news people, very Italian, very Jewish, representative of the city, a lot of minorities. Same thing in L.A. You get a lot of minorities on L.A. TV, and then you get a lot of, what should I just say, hot-looking people, right? Just like we got here in L.A. They love their good-looking news person here. Well, Biloxi, Mississippi. Same thing there, small little town, but you get some southern folks, they're on the news, and they represent the community. Well, this gentleman, Dave Elliott, he comes out in favor of President Trump on social media. He's a 30-year-long anchorman for WLOX, nearly longer than 30 years, nearly 4 decades. He's been at this news station, WLOX. And he releases a social media post basically telling people if you're voting for Kamala Harris and you don't know what she stands for, you don't know what she's about, you don't know her policies, he says, just stay home. Was this a political post by an anchorman who's supposed to be unbiased? Yes, but it's not the worst I've ever seen. He makes a point in all of this. Should he be reprimanded for it? Probably not. I was in the mainstream media. You can't show your political bias, even outside of life. You've got to remain in the public eye that you're unbiased. And he didn't do that, so he deserves a reprimand, but he does not deserve to be fired. We're going to play the social media post for you. Take a listen.
This is so unlike me because I'm usually a vote guy. I'd like to see 100% voter turnout, whether it's for your local sheriff or president of the United States. But if your hatred for Donald Trump is so strong, that's kind of a sickness, by the way, but if it's so strong that you're planning to go in that voting booth and vote for Kamala Harris, do you listen to her? Do you know anything about her? Anyway, do yourself, do the country, do the world a favor, and just sit it out. Stay home. Don't vote. This has been a public service announcement.
So just in local news fashion, this has been a public service announcement. And love the guy's voice, too. He's the typical news anchor, right? He makes a very valid point, by the way. Now, should this come from an unbiased journalist? Probably not. I understand that. If I'm the news director, I'm going to say, hey, Dave, you got to tone it down. We got to be unbiased. I know we're in Biloxi, Mississippi. We got a lot of Republicans in Mississippi. I get that our audience is going to eat this up, but you still got to tone it down. Just probably stay away from this. But his message is actually unbiased. When you really break down what the man has to say, that how are you going to vote for someone that you don't know what her policies are because she refuses to tell us, and the reason she refuses to tell us is because her real policies are too dangerous? How are you going to vote for someone like that? And he says, if you're only voting for her because you hate Donald Trump, well, then that's a sickness. Because as Danica Patrick said, you don't have to eat dinner with the man. You don't have to even like the man. But if you respect what he's doing as far as battling back against these bad actors across the oceans and bad actors here at home, the enemy from within, maybe you don't like that rhetoric, the enemy from within, maybe, oh, that makes me uncomfortable. I don't want to call anybody an American, an enemy from within, fine. You know what he means. He had 4 years. He wasn't a dictator in 4 years. And yet they want to go down this road and continue calling President Trump some kind of a dictator. He is not. So this guy, Dave Elliott, has a point. They fired him after 4 decades. You're telling me for that social media post, you get fired over that? The only other thing that could be at play here is he was probably making a lot of money for that market, which that market doesn't pay very well in local TV news. I'm going to tell you that much. But he was probably making a lot of money for the TV station, for their taste. And he gave them a favor. He did them a favor by making this post. Then they could fire him and they could push him out the door. That's probably what's going on here, because it was a pretty innocuous post. But now he's fired. And then on the other side of things, you have writers at the Washington Post saying that if we don't endorse, we're not practicing journalism. Well, how did we get to a point where papers were endorsing candidates anyway? That's the furthest thing from journalism. Editorial pages. 855-785-8255, the number to weigh in. We're going to talk about Jeff Bezos, owner of Amazon. He owns the Washington Post. He released a statement about this Washington Post stuff. Folks, so you want to be in Bitcoin, but the wild swings, the volatility scares the crap out of you. I don't blame you. So you know what I've done? I get monthly returns now, literal cash flow, being in Bitcoin, but only in mining. So the secret to success when it comes to Bitcoin is in the mining. And this is what Get21Now.com does. It's a company called NFN8. I'm involved with them. I've already started getting my checks. This is institutionalized giant warehouses of these servers. This is an impressive operation. They've been doing this for a long time. I've vetted them. I've talked to them. I want you to talk to them too. I used to buy businesses, right? I'd have to deal with employees and angry customers and paying bills and all of the headaches that come along with that. Folks, I get 21% now on my money, paid monthly. This is cash flow, baby. And look, NASDAQ is already trading Bitcoin as a commodity. This is real stuff. The future is now. Get21now.com. You want to have cash flow, monthly payments, talk to these guys, all right? Talk to them. They've promised stuff to me, and they have lived up to every promise they have made to me. Get21now.com. Get21now.com. Pay them a visit today and tell them Grant Stinchfield sent you. Listen, Jeff Bezos, the Amazon billionaire, owns the Washington Post. That's where democracy dies in darkness, right? That's their phrase. This is one of the most liberal, left-wing, biased newspapers on the face of the planet. Okay? Is the Washington Post making a turn towards unbiasedness? It certainly isn't making a turn towards conservatism. Do not mistake this lack of endorsement for a presidential candidate as that. Here's what I would say. There may be some signs that Jeff Bezos is realizing as 200,000 of his subscribers cancel their subscription because of a lack of endorsement. Now, if you want unbiased news and you have a paper that doesn't endorse a candidate, isn't that the ultimate of unbiasedness? And then you have subscribers that canceled their subscription because they were hungry for biasness. They don't want unbiased. See, I would love an unbiased Washington Post. I think at one point the Washington Post was one of the premier newspapers in the country. I think it always leaned liberal. Then it went hard left, and it lost all respect from me. But you go back into the days of the 40s, 50s, 60s, and you have the Washington Post really being a staple inside the beltway of what's going on there. No longer. So Jeff Bezos writes an opinion piece himself explaining why he said we do not want to endorse anymore. So he bought the Post in 2013. He said, insisted that the newspaper's endorsements do nothing to tip the scales of an election, but instead create a perception of bias. So he doubles down on the Post decision to end its presidential endorsement. So apparently, as long as he's the owner, they're never going to endorse again. To me, I think this is a good move. I don't know where we got to the point that endorsements from newspapers were a good idea. If you want to be an unbiased journalist or an unbiased journalism organization, you would not be offering up endorsements on behalf of the paper. Consider this the difference between cable news outlets. Now, certainly Fox News, right of center. Certainly CNN, far left of center. MSNBC, far left of center. Certainly Real America's Voice, far right of center. Understood. I would offer up that Real America's Voice is a complete opinion network, just like Breitbart and the Gateway Pundit are opinion online news outlets. Fox News still tries to run the idea that it's a fair and balanced, unbiased news network that has opinion shows on it, but the opinion shows, I think Fox News would argue, do not represent the belief of the entire network as a whole. Sean Hannity gives you his feelings. That represents Sean Hannity. It doesn't represent all of Fox. Now, A reasonable person is going to say, well, that network doesn't have any left-wing commentators that have their own shows. Of course not, because they're playing to a certain audience. But a newspaper that's supposed to be fair and balanced coming out and endorsing a candidate on behalf of the newspaper would be the equivalent of on behalf of the network. That just doesn't seem to be a good idea. I think the whole idea of newspaper endorsements should die. So Bezos denied there was any quid pro quo that motivated the decision and insisted the meeting the boss of his company, Blue Origin, had with former President Trump, which occurred the day of the announcement, was regretful coincidence. So he says they meet with Trump. It's a coincidence that they don't endorse that day. There's no connection between it, he says. Here's what he writes in his editorial. The Washington Post and the New York Times win prizes. But increasingly, we talk only to a certain elite. More and more, we talk to ourselves, Bezos wrote. While I do not and will not push my personal interest, I will not allow this paper to stay on autopilot and fade into irrelevance, overtaken by unresearched podcasts and social media barbs, not without a fight. It's too important. The stakes are too high. Now more than ever, the world needs a credible, trusted, independent voice, and where better for that voice to originate than the capital city of the most important country in the world. Do you believe him? Well, today I go to the front page of the Washington Post, and normally I can tell you biased headlines, biased news articles, and I'm going to give you an example. I'm doing this on the fly, by the way, as we speak. Here is an example of the New York Times, okay? The New York Times, which you know is biased, the first article on the site is, an ethical minefield awaits a possible second Trump presidency. Now, do you think that's biased? Of course it is. The first article on the Washington Post site. On Elon Musk's X, Republicans go viral as Democrats disappear. Well, isn't that interesting? Because that certainly doesn't seem like a biased headline from the Washington Post, but I'm used to biased headlines. Arizona's ballot is so long it could create election day problems. That actually seems like straight news. And actually, I'm surprised that the Washington Post would even call out election day problems or the possibility of it, seeing all the problems with election integrity and their quest to cover it up last time around. Then they go back to their old ways. She said she had a miscarriage, then got arrested under an abortion law. The 1911 Nevada statute is one of a wide variety of laws. So there you have it, boom. But it took a little bit ways down the page. New York Times, on the other hand, second story at the New York Times. How will Harris make a last plea? Then came to the garden. Trump team fears damage from racist rally remarks. So you can see the New York Times has not had any movement backwards or a move to the center. New York Times doubling down. The Washington Post, though. Here's a headline on the Washington Post. The black vote will signal a change, but what kind? Did the media do its job this election cycle? And the opinion piece right at the very top by Jeff Bezos, the hard truth, Americans don't trust the news media. The Washington Post, at least today, showing signs of a return to the center. I don't believe it, though. I think they're going to wait to see who wins. If, God forbid, Kamala Harris wins, the Washington Post will double down on that. Well, the New York Times doesn't care. They're off the freaking deep end. I thought the Washington Post was, too. Maybe Bezos is on to something. I think he's trying to cozy favor with President Trump, though, in front of what will be a Trump victory. I'm Grant Stinchfield. Well, folks, I want to tell you about Patriot Mobile. You know, I have a Patriot Mobile phone. I'm so happy with it. Patriot Mobile is all about supporting the programs, causes, charities that believe in the things we believe in. Why would you be giving money to the big three woke cell phone companies that literally practice DEI policies inside their corporate structure. They literally fund places like Planned Parenthood. When you could be with Patriot Mobile, that's supporting our veterans, that's protecting our gun rights, that is literally taking the fight when it comes to free speech to the left, putting "In God We Trust" signs in schools, and for this, the media comes after them so hard. Patriot Mobile, I urge you to get a Patriot Mobile phone. Hey, I got a Patriot One plan, one phone, two lines, two different networks. So in an emergency, one network's down, I got it covered. PatriotMobile.com/grant, PatriotMobile.com/grant. That's where I want you to go. Use the promo code GRANT for a free month service, and I promise you, you are not going to regret it. You can call them at 972-PATRIOT, 972-PATRIOT, and you tell them Grant Stinchfield sent you. All right, a bold prediction has happened from, quote, the world's most accurate economist. This comes from Christophe Baroud. He expects U.S. growth to accelerate once the results are in, regardless of who gets elected. Now, let's first go with this. If you have money in the stock market right now, you're probably like me. What in the world do you do? Because a Trump victory, I think, is going to be good for the stock market. A Trump loss would be bad for the stock market. This gentleman, Christophe Baroud, says not to fear. No matter who wins, he thinks that the country is going to accelerate as far as GDP goes, maybe because it takes this last year of uncertainty about who's going to be the leader out of it. But I don't know if I necessarily agree with him on that. Here's the thing. I'm gambling on a Trump victory. I can't take all my money out of the stock market right now because there would be massive tax implications. One thing under Joe Biden, and I do not believe it has anything to do with Joe Biden, is that the stock market has been very good for the last 4 years. Now, I think a lot of this over the last year or two is in preparation of a Trump presidency that many people investing know President Trump is on the horizon. They see good things. They invest in the stock market. But on the other side of things, I will acknowledge to you, I can't explain why we've seen such gains in the stock market under Joe Biden and Kamala Harris when everything they do is to hurt business. Everything they do is to stifle investment. In many respects, it doesn't make sense, which then leads me back to my ultimate belief that this whole stock market game is a Wall Street jig. And the jig is on us. They prop up these markets. This is not grandma and grandpa pulling nickels and dimes out of their couch and investing it in the stock market. This is about hedge funds. It's about AI bot trading. It's about all kinds of things that have nothing to do with the little guy. Either way, my stock portfolio is up 20-something% this year. If I was to liquidate that, can you think of the tax implications that would happen upon selling those stocks, taking a profit there? We'd have real issues. So I'm not selling. And I'm really in it for a long term. I'm not a day trader. So I'm sticking in with the stock market. Now, this strategist, Christopher Baroud, first off, do you believe the guy's only 36 years old, 38 years old, and for 12 straight years, Bloomberg has called him the world's foremost forecaster. That means at 26 years old, he was the world's foremost accurate economist. Crazy. So he, besides predicting the markets will be fine, he is also predicting a Trump victory. Now, why? Here's what he says. He's a strategist at Market Securities Monaco. And he's, as I said, predicts the U.S. growth would accelerate after the election. But here's what he says about the Trump presidency. Looking at different metrics, such as betting markets. Who else has been looking at those? You and I have, right, for the past week or two. Looking at different metrics, such as betting markets, polls, election modelers' forecasts, financial markets. As of now, the most probable outcomes are, number one, a Trump victory. Number two, a GOP clean sweep. That's what he wrote on X. So, as I said, he's been ranked the best economic forecaster in the U.S. economy every year since 2012. So his prediction of economic growth, Barun warned that if Vice President Kamala Harris gets elected with a split Congress, yields could drop because the market has already been priced for a Republican win. It would correct down, he added. If Trump wins with Congress split between parties, his ability to cut taxes for corporations and households could be stalled. This is what he told Business Insider. Trump would therefore focus on tariffs, which could hurt global growth, he said. But the most likely outcome, according to him, is a Republican clean sweep of Congress. Why would this be? This is the case because people want change. They're tired of the last 4 years. No matter what the mainstream media tells you, no matter what Kamala Harris tells you, we're fed up, we're beat down, and we need something different. So when President Trump wins, here's what he's going to do. He's going to implement these tax cuts he's talking about. Tax cuts for everyday folks, by the way. No tax on overtime. You know how far and wide that reaches? No tax on tips. You know how far and wide that reaches? A tax credit for those caring for family members. That doesn't reach quite as far and wide, but it's pretty darn good. These are the kind of things that are going to go a long way. Tax deduction if you buy a new car that's American made. That doesn't just put money in the pocket of the person who buys the car. That puts money in the pockets of more auto workers. I'm going to tell you, if President Trump doesn't win, here's what China's going to do. China is going to destroy the U.S. automaker market. It's already on its way downward. I have a very good friend of mine who used to own Jeep dealers. I said, hey, I was thinking about buying my son a Jeep Compass for his 16th birthday, a nice, safe car to drive. This buddy who owned Jeep dealers says, don't. I said, what? You own Jeep dealers? I said, what do you mean don't? He says, I was going to use the S word, but I'm not going to drop S-bombs on my own show. He said, they're not good. He said, they have problems. The Jeeps are not what they used to be. They've cut corners. This is a guy who used to own Jeep dealerships not that long ago. The car market in America is being crushed. Kamala Harris wins. China will take advantage of this. I'm telling you, folks, you watch. So this guy, Baroud, says that in the short term, GDP in 2025 would rise to about 2.1 to 2.3%. If Trump cuts taxes as he promises, the only problem is if we don't pay for those tax cuts, the deficit could be increased. Now, I actually believe the tax cuts will spur income for the federal government because more people will be making money, and because you have a larger pool to now draw from, you're bringing in more money. It'd be maybe less of a percentage from each individual, but you have way more individuals. Okay? Let me give you an example. If you've got one guy with $10 and you take $10 from the one guy to make 10, or would you rather have 100 people and just take $1 from each of the 100? I'd rather take $1 from the 100. Then you leave them with 9. Government gets their $1. Now they have $100 instead of taking the very small view, but taking all of it from one person. That's how the Democrats look at things. They want to take all of it from the small percentage of people. They despise, folks, they despise success. Do you want someone running the government that despises success? Do you want a party that wants to stifle investment, that wants you to be reliant on them? This is what this election is all about. Again, it's the most consequential election of our time. Are you ready for it? 855-785-8255, 855-785-8255. All right. Kamala Harris says if President Trump gets in, President Trump is going to take not just your guns, but guns from black men. So she goes on this Shannon Sharp podcast, and what a sad state of affairs that Shannon Sharp, who was a fabulous football player, he's a pretty good sports commentator, I would say. Pretty good. He's a horrible political prognosticator. Horrible. Stay out of politics. I stay out of sports for the most part, especially after last night. I don't want to talk about sports at all. So Shannon Sharp, he's got some words for Kamala Harris. You can see him trying to prop her up, too. Talk about that. I'm Grant Stinchfield. All right, does anybody notice a difference with me? I've lost now, yes, if you can believe it, 12 pounds in just 3.5 weeks on the Energized Health program. The secret is in the science, but it's also in the simplicity. I am not killing myself with workouts. Yes, I work out with weights, and I always had, but I've added in a very small workout to this program. Super easy. I have a diet plan now. I am never hungry. I don't feel like I'm struggling through this diet. It is super simple. And I'm getting myself hydrated. It is all about cellular hydration, and the results you can achieve are absolutely astonishing. And I'm telling you firsthand, folks. I got involved with them. They came to me and said, hey, we want you to try this out. I said, okay, I could tighten things up a little bit. And bing, bang, boom, I'm on track, man. And I credit energizedhealth.com/Grant, energizedhealth.com/Grant. There's coaching involved in this. There's recipes involved in this. The plan is all laid out for you. And again, it is super simple. This is life-changing, mind, body, soul. It's a total body transformation. God bless the folks at Energized Health who are helping me. energizedhealth.com/Grant. Check them out today. So President Trump knows that he's making big inroads with black folks. He knows this is the case. Kamala Harris knows this is the case. The media knows it's the case. The black community knows it's the case. The Democrats know it's the case. So what do? They resort to coming out with lies. So Kamala Harris talks about Trump isn't going to be part of their team, okay? Excuse me, that Trump is not going to include black men as part of his team. But it's really a ridiculous comment, what she comes out with. Now, this is on Shannon Sharp's podcast. Shannon Sharp, I don't know if he's a Hall of Fame football player, but maybe he should be. He is, yeah, Hall of Fame football player. Pretty darn good pontificator about sports on ESPN. I enjoy watching him at times. I don't really like when he starts to get involved in politics because I can see which direction he's headed. And again, it just tells me that whatever I thought, or if I thought he was a well-informed individual about sports, it makes me question how he really is, because who would vote for Kamala Harris if you're smart? And again, you know, when I think about it, this gets into the difference between us and them. My mother told my sister, the pet psychic, thepetpsychic.com, they had a visit. She's the conservative pet psychic. She used to live up there in Ojai. She now lives in New York. She said that my sister only listens to me and that she's morally reprehensible for voting for President Trump. Okay. Now, this is my mother to my sister, and I know my mother loves my sister, and I'm pretty sure she loves me. I'm not completely sure, but I'm pretty sure she does. Remember, I told you, she said I ruined the family name because of my conservative beliefs. But this is very typical of liberals versus conservatives. I'm going to tell you right now, am I disappointed that my mother and father are going to vote for Kamala Harris? Yes. Is there part of me that loses a little bit of respect for their ability to reason? Yes. Do I think they're morally reprehensible? No. Do I think they're evil people? No. Do I think they're Nazis or supporting a dictatorship? No, even though I do believe Kamala Harris will act more like a dictator than President Trump will ever act like one. I don't care who you vote for. I will certainly do my best, as I do every day on this program, the podcast, and the TV show, to convince you that the best reason to vote for President Trump is because of peace and prosperity. I will do my best to convince you that, but in the end, it's a free country, man. Like, go vote for whoever you want to vote for. I'll still shake your hand at the end of the day. I might lose a little of respect for you. I'm going to admit that. I might be disappointed. But I'm not going to turn to my mother and father and say you're morally reprehensible. That's craziness. But this is the vitriol from those on the left. They hate us, folks. They hate us. They despise us. I don't know what it is about freedom that they just cannot stand. And anybody that embraces freedom somehow is a Nazi. Why? Because we believe we can make better choices for ourselves than the government can? That's the whole difference between us. I believe my decision for myself and my family is better than the government can make for me and my family. It's that simple. That's what all politics gets down to between conservatives and liberals. So this is Kamala Harris talking to black folks, and I think it's very, very demeaning.
So part of what we have to help people understand is don't think you're in Donald Trump's club. You're not.
Right.
He's not going to be thinking about you. You think he's having you over for dinner?
Is Kamala Harris having me over for dinner? I'm a white guy for Trump. Am I supposed to say, oh, no, I'm going to be in Kamala Harris's team? If I vote for her, change my mind, all of a sudden I'm getting invited to the White House? I'm getting invited to the White House? Never happening. She hates me. President Trump doesn't hate black men. In fact, I believe that more than anything else, President Trump probably wants to help them. So Kamala Harris continues with the lies. And this is Shannon Sharp setting her up into a lie that somehow Donald Trump's going to take away guns from black men.
Blacks for Trump. They feel that Trump is better for the black community. Can you explain Donald Trump's history with blacks? Where did this come that all of a sudden, I mean, it's been like this because a lot of people used to say, I'm Donald Trump of the ghetto because he was, I mean, for a lot of blacks, not all, but for some blacks, he was, Madam VP, whether we want to admit it or not, he's revered by some blacks.
But here's the thing. The question for everybody, should he be president of the United States?
Okay.
Right? That's...
No, not right. I mean, the question is, should he be president of the United States? The answer is yes. He'll make a far better president than you ever will because you failed as being a vice president. How am I supposed to expect you're going to be successful as being a president? We watched President Trump succeed.
The question. Should he have the ability to sit behind the seal of the president of the United States when he says he wants to terminate the Constitution of the United States?
Never said he wants to terminate the Constitution.
You know what that would mean? In the Constitution of the United States is your Fourth Amendment right against unreasonable search and seizure, your Fifth Amendment right, your Sixth Amendment right to an attorney.
Well, a lot of rights going to be gone. The First Amendment.
But the First Amendment, the Second Amendment.
Yes.
Look, I'm in favor of the Second Amendment. I don't believe we should be taking anybody's guns away.
Well, Goose doesn't think they should be taking any guns away either. You can hear him going hog wild down there. We all love our guns. But you really think that President Trump is going to take guns away? President Trump is endorsed by the National Rifle Association. Tim Walz just went on one of the late night shows, says it's time to ban AR-15s. Kamala Harris has said the same thing over and over and over again. They've made it very, very clear that if they had their bones, they would do away with the Second Amendment altogether. And she's going to now go down the road that President Trump's going to take your guns away. Do you see the desperation in this campaign? And your First Amendment rights, folks, they just took, I told you, they just took Gateway Hispanic off of YouTube. That's a First Amendment right that was destroyed by YouTube. For conservative Hispanics now have one less place to get a conservative voice. They've wiped me out off TikTok and YouTube in the past. These are not conservatives that are doing this. And you don't ever hear of liberals having their accounts taken down for misinformation and disinformation. The only ones canceling your First Amendment rights are Democrats. The only ones canceling your Second Amendment rights are Democrats. And you tell me this is not the most consequential election of our time? Come on. Everything we hold dear as a nation, everything that is fundamental as a nation is up for grabs in this election. What are you going to do? I'm now at 7:01. I'm Grant Stinchfield. More from Kamala Harris. And the 49ers had an incident. They told a guy to remove his Make America Great Again hat. before going into the stadium last night. What is this about? We'll talk about that. Stick with me.
Do you really trust her to run this country for the next 4 years? How have the last 4 years gone under him? While your tax dollars are being funneled overseas and to support illegal immigration, they've left our people behind, offering just $750 in aid as if that's enough. With political insanity that we're living through, supply chain shortages, natural disasters, and the looming threat of another pandemic, you need to prepare your family now. The Wellness Company offers 5 critical medical kits packed with life-saving medications like ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, amoxicillin, Z-Pak, and more. Each kit is backed by Dr. Peter McCullough. Ordering is simple. Just a few clicks and it's delivered to your door. Head to twc.health/grant and use code GRANT to save up to $60 off plus free shipping. That's twc.health/grant and use code GRANT to save up to $60 off plus free shipping right now.
Grant, you need to call who you call Tim Harry Walls by who he really is. He's Tim No Walls. Now, if he had walls, they might possibly be hairy, but they're not there. It's Tim No Walls.
Well, that is very true. You can't call him Tim Harry Walls if he has no walls. So maybe his new nickname needs to be Tim No Walls. Walls. Maybe. Oh, I love it. All right, folks. President Trump barnstorming the country. So, and he's really doing fabulous things. I don't know if you saw him at Georgia Tech last night. This is in the heart of Atlanta. Very important state, liberal city, on a liberal campus, and he fills the Georgia Tech arena. I mean, fills it. Kamala Harris is not doing this, okay? Which, again, is a very good sign to me that President Trump is in a good spot. All right, so he goes out there and he's saying all of the right things, and he's doing it in a manner that I think is resonating with the American people. This is President Trump.
But I'm asking you to dream big again, and this will be America's new golden age. We're going to have a golden age, and hard to believe after the 4 years, almost 4 years of what we've gone through. It's hard to believe I can even say that.
Do you think we'll have a golden age under President Trump? I think so. The thing that we're going to have to watch is the deceitfulness, deviousness, and the quest to destroy our country from those on the left, including our enemies like China. Do they unleash another virus on us? Do they try to derail the Trump presidency like they did the first time around with that COVID virus? That COVID virus, really, when you think about it, it killed President Trump. His momentum was like a steam train headed down the mountain. And then, bam, COVID and the response and the deep state and big pharma and big business all colluding together. Hey, by the way, BART up there in San Francisco, the transit authority, lost a huge lawsuit. You've got 6 employees of BART who were terminated, not given a vaccination exemption for religious reasons. They were terminated by BART. Federal jury rules that each one of those employees should get $1 million. It's a big payout for BART. This is what I mean when I say this country's headed in the right direction. Now, that's a federal court up in Northern California that's not going to be the most friendly to conservative causes, but that was a nice victory for us. President Trump continued. This is talking about Kamala's campaign being all about hate.
And I'm running a campaign of solutions to save our country. Kamala is running a campaign of demonization and hate. She really does. She's a hater. She's a hater.
She is a hater. And then you had Michelle Obama. I don't know if you heard her. Oh, boy. Even President Trump talked about just how vile and evil she comes out, just horrible Michelle Obama. She's a very mean person. Very, very mean. You know, at most of these rallies, President Trump calls Kamala Harris a low IQ individual, which I believe she is. So here's a question for you. Is Kamala Harris really dumb? Part of me wrestles with this, because if she was really dumb, how would she have gotten to where she is without ever having to be elected? Somebody's got to orchestrate that coup. Whether she did it all herself or whether she was part of it, she had to have a say in it. I don't know if she's really dumb. I don't think she's the smartest person in the room by any means. And I do think that her biggest problem is that she is a hardcore radical. She is a Marxist at heart. So she finds herself having to hide her true beliefs. And because she's not the smartest in the room, when you're trying to hide your true beliefs, it turns into a word salad disaster. So Kamala Harris, very offended that President Trump calls her a low IQ individual, challenges President Trump to a cognitive test. Now, you remember, President Trump said that she's the one who ought to take the cognitive test. She said she'd do it. Here's the thing. We're a week before election. I wouldn't play in any of these games. I don't trust her cognitive test versus his cognitive test. I think it would be a setup job, and I just don't trust her. But I can tell you this 100% sure, as real as God is real, that Kamala Harris would lose the cognitive test to President Trump. So, you know, President Trump's talking about her campaign of hate. Do you think she hates Americans? I think she does.
But Kamala is labeling more than half of the country as the enemy combatants, and she's calling them all fascists and Nazis, okay? But she's a fascist, okay? She's a fascist. How can Kamala Harris, and I don't use the name too much because nobody knows who the hell I'm talking about when I say Harris. If I said, how come Harris, and people look around, who is Harris? Kelly, they say, who is Harris? How can...
I think he's talking about Franco Harris. Do you remember the Immaculate Conception? Oh, excuse me, the Immaculate Reception. They hate conception. The Democrats do. The Immaculate Reception. Franco Harris, is that the Harris he's talking about? No, probably not.
Kamala Harris lead America when she probably hates Americans because that's her ideology. She destroyed San Francisco. She's a very incompetent person running for president who stole the nomination from crooked Joe Biden.
She did. So can you really be dumb to manage to orchestrate that coup? And believe me, that was a coup that was successful. They want to blame January 6th as a coup. Well, that wasn't a very good coup. Show up to the most powerful government's doorstep with no guns, no weapons, and think you're going to take over the government? That doesn't make much sense. That's why it wasn't a coup. All the while, she managed a coup right from inside the White House. This is what Venezuelan generals dream of. She orchestrated it. Maybe she isn't as dumb as we all think she is. You know, one of the things when I ran for Congress, I was convinced that the guy I was running against, it was a Republican primary. I thought he wouldn't take me seriously. I thought he'd think, who is this former news guy? He's not going to give me any problems. That guy spent like $1 million to beat me. He took me seriously from day one. That was his it wasn't his biggest mistake. It was the best thing he ever did. My mistake was to think that he wouldn't. And then I'd sneak in. I'd give him the old 1-2 puncheroo, and then next thing you know, I'm in. Nope. He spent millions of dollars, took me serious from the very start. I hope we are not underestimating Kamala Harris's smarts because she speaks in word salad mumbo jumbo. Maybe. Let's hope not. You know, President Trump mentioned San Francisco. Did you hear this story? Niners fan told to remove his Make America Great Again hat. We've got the audio of this. Listen.
We're about to enter, and they stop us because my son-in-law is wearing this hat, and they don't want to let us in.
So you're not letting these folks in. So hold on. You guys are going to kick them out for wearing Make America Great Again hat. Hold on.
Yep.
Hold on. We got to see the video already. You guys are going to kick these folks out. I'm sorry. These folks out.
I want to know that the supervisor.
You got to listen carefully.
It is not on the website. I looked it up because I'm not on this hat. Would you guys have? It is the same thing.
She can't wear it?
Yeah, they said we can't wear it. No way. Yes.
Look,
yes. Our MAGA hat.
Look, I'm going to tell you, there's no way that is a legitimate. There's no way that is a legitimate policy for the San Francisco 49ers. This is some idiot security guy. I promise you, some idiot security guy taking his job way too seriously. And he will be reprimanded. You watch. This happened at another place. I think it was the New York Jets. I think it was the Jets. Somebody did this. The team had to come out and apologize. This is a lack of training. Make America great again. It shouldn't even be a political statement. Well, we know it is, and I'm glad it is. Come on. They're all surrounding her, watching this go down. Give me a break, man. Can't not let her take her Make America Great Again hat in. That's just wrong. These people are tyrants. What I hate, I'm going to tell you what I hate, what I despise, is when you get minimum wage employees now thinking they can be a tyrant because they're your boss when you're trying to go into a club or you're trying to go in to a restaurant or you're trying to get into a baseball game. They can act like a tyrant. To me, it's completely annoying. All right, so just 6 days now until Election Day. I want you to ask yourself, what are you going to do today? What are you going to do tomorrow to make sure that President Trump is secured victory? Because I can't say it enough. It's not up to him anymore. It is up to us. Yes, he's going to be doing rallies. Yes, he's barnstorming. Yes, he's going to a place like New Mexico and Virginia. He already was in New York at the Great Madison Square Garden. He already was in California. Do you notice something? President Trump is going to states where the Democrats say he can't win these states. President Trump knows something we don't know. It's why he's going to these places. It could be an electoral college blowout, but only if you do your part. Vote like your vote is the one that's going to put President Trump over the top. If you do that, we win, no doubt about it. All right, folks. The website is GrantStinchfield.com, GrantStinchfield.com, at Stinchfield1776. I appreciate it if you sign up for the email list on the website, GrantStinchfield.com. It's how I keep in touch with you. If we get canceled, this way we can stay connected, so to speak. That's going to do it for us. I'm Grant Stinchfield. We'll see you on the Real America's Voice show tonight, 7 p.m. Eastern time, though we may have Trump rally coverage. That's okay. Join me there. We have lots of fun when we do that. And again, we'll see you back here tomorrow. Stinchfield's Army rolls. Thanks to all of you. Trump 2024.